guys can even see us. So it's rolling.
On this ride, Paul and I left Northampton, went into the woodlands. We were running behind schedule, so we missed the group, and it took us the better part of an hour and a half before we caught up to them after we got across Lake Conroe. We knew what route they were taking, so what we did is once we got into Hornier, we did some film shots in Montgomery, and then we went across the bridge, and right there we hooked up with a group. Moore was there. We had seen Moore earlier in the morning when we were chasing, but they were just going too fast for what was going on with us, and so we let them go. So all over there in that stretch back we filmed, and I think you will really enjoy the clips, because until we got back on McCaleb Road, we got some really good snapshots before our battery contact. But I think you will like the variety of clips that Paul and I put together this weekend.
We're cutting it close. 7:06, we just got out here. About a quarter mile from the start.
Yeah, we're running late today. It's about 7:07, and we're just getting to research. We're on Kirkendall Boulevard. So at this point, we're about a quarter mile from where they start. It's in a shopping center across here.
Come on.
So we really got a boogie.
Come on, my brother. And then just says, let's do this.
So I was not very surprised that by the time we got to the main entrance, they were gone. About an eighth of a mile, we'll go by the entrance. This is Research Forest Boulevard. I'm going to tell Paul they're gone. When we get there, and then he's going to say, oh, they're down the street. Well, I think we're probably about almost 5 minutes late. Maybe more. If they left at 7, then we're almost 10 minutes late. While I look through there.
They're gone?
So crust pizza's in there.
Yeah. They're just down the street. They must be down the street.
Well, he said they're down the street, but we can't see them. So we just gonna have to, since we knew what route they were going, we decided, okay, we're just going to head in that direction. And at this point, we had decided that we're going to do the forest. We ended up changing our mind once we got out into Montgomery. So my week had been unusual in that I started out, I was not well on Monday. I had an intestinal, they call it stomach flu, but it's really not. It's an intestinal infection. So for almost 20 hours or so, I was in distress, and it causes you to lose all the nutrients. You know, you can't have nausea, can't keep anything down. So it took several days for me to pretty much recover from it. You know, I mean, within 24 hours, I was feeling better. But once you lose all your nutrients and everything, I didn't get back into training. I just rested up. So this is the first ride I've done since last Saturday. So I pretty much had the whole week off, plus I was sick on Monday. So you've got to really pace yourself. So I'm just out today to see how my body would feel. That's the goal for me anyway. I checked the intersection early with chasing, so nothing was coming. That's a very quiet intersection, so we're just gonna roll. If you're gonna do that, you need to at least stop and look. you can do that if the light's not working or something. Because sometimes it doesn't change for bicycles. But you have to at least stop and check. Don't just blow through it. So I checked and told Paul it was clear. And I remember we're riding on rural roads. We're out in the country. It's not busy. It's early Saturday morning. City. That's Mo and his group. That's Christian. And then Jesus. So they come up right as we hit Egypt Lane here. But they're flying. And so you will see we'll join the tail of the group here at the intersection of the road. They're going to ask us if the Crust Pizza group is behind or whether they're ahead. Because we had seen that they were headed east when we were coming down. I mean, they're going so much faster than we were going. They're going 26 miles an hour. We were doing about 22, 23. So, it's significant. They're flying. And with the week I've had, I wasn't up to it. And you see later in the ride, my legs will tell me, you're out of your mind, and I have to back off on one of the big climbs that we come across. Hours into the ride with the group. So we just latched onto the back of their line, and you would hear them ask us at this corner.
I think the cross guys are behind, right?
The what?
The cross.
Did they already leave? Yeah.
Ah, so they are in front. Oh.
Yeah.
So the Crust guys are the Team RR guys. They leave from Crust Pizza. That's what Jesus was referring to. The Crust guys. So they thought they were behind us. And once they found out they were in front, they're like, "Okay, come on, we're gonna catch them." They take off. At this point, I'm not feeling like riding at their pace. So I'm behind Paul here. As we take off, we left all those other riders. And because we're all headed in the same direction, the riders who just left at this intersection will end up catching up to us later on. And unknown to me, Paul filmed some clips as I started to feel better. So when you've had a week where, let's say you were below par, you didn't do your normal schedule, you kind of have to check yourself out on a few rides before you really go hard. I went harder than I should have. We did not ride as long as we usually do because, of the kind of week I had, but we went a little harder, and I think I went a little harder than I should have gone. But it's all a matter of you listening to yourself and learning to recover. So right here, I'm telling Paul to let them go. Don't burn your legs. I'm behind him because we're not really drafting them. I told him, just let them go. Don't burn your legs. So that guy's not riding with them. He comes by, but he's not going as far as we are. He ends up going down Fish Creek and going into one of those neighborhoods. So I just told Paul, there's no point in us going that fast. Those guys are actually going to go and do the forest. They're going to do part of the forest called Mount Pleasant Road.
Yeah.
Because I told him, Paul, so you weren't sitting in the draft, so let them go. What I was saying was, I found out later we end up seeing them again.
I didn't either.
We end up seeing them again, which was the nice surprise. After we crossed the lake, they went up Mount Pleasant Road, which is a part of the forest. They did that, and then they went east on 1097, which is the same route the Team RR guys had advertised and told everybody that's what they were doing. So it's nice when they put the route out, because then you can hook up with them later or earlier, whatever works for you. Because this time of year they're leaving at 7, and it's so dark at 6 or whatever, depending on where you live, that if you're not driving there, sometimes it's hard to get there on time. So it takes us about 35 minutes or so just rolling to get there. And we just, we missed them by a few minutes. At this point, we're near Taco Corner. We're in Montgomery. I was not aware that Paul was filming. My legs started to feel better because I felt blocked up since I'd been off the bike all week and been under the weather. I was really monitoring my energy level on this ride. I made sure I had electrolytes and a lot of gels, because when you've gone through issues with your stomach, I'm telling Paul that I was watching Primoz Roglic in the Vuelta. I like the way he rides. He likes to race his bike. He doesn't follow all the tactical rules, but he has fun out there. He takes chances, and that's what it takes. So as we climb this, I'm not aware that the camera's on. We're just riding because these are the riders that we had passed at the light probably about 30 minutes earlier, and they came around us, and so we caught them at 105, and I was sitting on them. So in a little bit, I started to feel better here on this climb. So I told Paul I was going to test my legs because there is a break. There's a couple of riders that have pulled away, and I told him, I said, my legs just woke up. Because when you've been off the bike, sometimes it takes a few hours or a few rides for your legs to really feel like you're a cyclist per se. We're going up a climb into the wind here. Those guys had ridden off the front. So what I decided to do was I told Paul I'm going to test my legs here by just closing the gap. I'm really monitoring not only my legs, but how I feel energy-wise. Because when you have to empty out your system, and then you start pretty much starting from scratch, you got to make sure, whenever you have stomach issues, you lose a lot of electrolytes and so forth. So you got to really watch that. But right now, I'm feeling good. I found out after we turned that he was running the camera when he turned it off because it has beeps. So we're close up. We're very close. I didn't want to catch them. We're not really riding together. They just came by, and then we caught up with them at the light. So what we're gonna do here, we're gonna be turning right because we decided that we were going to go and do the forest. Once we get out on 1097, since the week before we did the same route, I told Paul, well, let's do the forest, and he agreed. So we turn here, we're gonna go past Taco Corner and get on 1097. I don't think he filmed that part of it. I think when he turned the camera off here, that's when I knew he had been filming. I'm like, oh, you had that thing on? So once we get outside of Montgomery, is to our left, the downtown area. We're on the outskirts of it, and then we're gonna go 1097. And we intended to go through the forest until we got about halfway to the turnoff. Then we turn right.
Yep.
I told him that my legs are feeling good back there. That's why I decided to just test them out and see. Because every day I was about to ride this week, I felt low on energy. And I decided to just rest. My wife told me to just wait till Saturday. She said, just rest up for Saturday. At this point, we've caught up to the group at the boathouse in Lake Conroe. We actually have left the boathouse. We're headed up a slight climb here. We're headed south towards 830, kind of southeasterly. This is a nice little grade. I think it's like 5% or so. It's not that bad. More than 5. It says 6 over there. So it's probably like 7. It's a nice little bump to your neighborhood. I'm on the right next to Paul. And Mo and his group have caught up with us here after going through and putting in more caves. They came back around and we all met together at this boathouse. So Mo's behind us. You will see him in a bit. In a few kilometers, he will come and start setting up the last climb, saying that the biggest climb of the day is coming up, and so the climbers teams are already getting ready to get their climbers to the base of the climb. You know, like he's commentating and narrating a bike race. So the last thing I thought, I said the Tifosi will be on the side waiting for us. Mo just enjoys riding his bike. So I was like,
That guy in the white was complaining.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, 5 minutes. We've been there for a while.
what had happened was when we got to the boathouse, shortly before we turned, Mo and them caught up to us. Well, these guys had already been there for a bit, so we just went ahead and got our drinks, loaded the bottle, and we're ready to go. Well, one member of Mo's team, I don't know what he had been doing. We'd been there at least 10 minutes, and then we were ready to leave, and he said he needed more time. So Mo asked him, do you want to stay here? Because we had been there for a bit. And so when you get to a stop, you got to make sure your bottles are loaded and do what you got to do so you're ready to roll. And so he had to hurry up, you know, because the group was ready to go. It's like, you know, that's what we're talking about here. It's like we've been there about 12 to 15 minutes. That's plenty. They want to spend time riding, not standing at some convenience store lot. There's really nowhere to sit anyway, except on the back deck. This place used to have a lot of trees on the right. It's all cleared. They put in a subdivision on the right there. It just gives it a different look. I hate when they clear the trees like they do. They want to get the houses so close together, so I guess they can put more houses on the land. Then they come and stick these little twigs they call trees that will take 50 years to give you shade. So you get to a stop, load up your bottles, drink, and be ready to go. You can talk on the bike. So I don't know what he had been doing, but he had to hurry. While we were ready to leave, he was just coming out with his provisions. You know. In fact, there was a patron in the store when we got there that was kind of visiting with the clerk. I told him, hey man, we're trying to conduct some business here. We're waiting on you. So he had to step aside. You know, I don't like to stay inside those buildings that long. I want to get in there, get what I need, and get out, be outside. There's small stores, you know, in the middle of nowhere. I want to be in longer than I have to. I roll to the front here so that I can be in the clip and make sure I can synchronize these things. So I rolled up a little bit here, sitting on Mark's wheel. In a kilometer or so, I'm gonna notice Mark's gonna put his hand out to tell us that we're slowing down. And then I notice his gloves are all shredded. Now you hear me tell him, man, you've gotten your money's worth out of this. And he says, Eldred, you have an eye for detail. And then the day after this ride, I rode with them again, and he tells me, Eldred, when I got home, I threw my gloves away. The gloves were shredded to the point where his palms and everything were exposed, so you might as well not even wear gloves. I told him, I said, man, you've gotten your money out of that there, boy. It's time to retire. Just the right was shredded, the left looked fine, so I don't know if he had a crash in the past or whatever it was. That's Abby over there. Abby is sporting the Rafa Flyweight Pro Team jersey, and it's terracotta and mustard. That's a beautiful color. That's the same color I'm wearing up here, but I'm wearing the protein jersey, not the flyweight. It's a little heavier than that flyweight. So this is where I noticed Mark's gloves are shredded, the right ones.
I think you got all the money you're gonna get out of this thing. Time for a new one. Got nothing on it.
Eldred, you are one for me, man.
I told him, you got your money's worth. It's time to retire those gloves.
All right, so now we're getting ready for the big climb of the day.
That's Mo.
And you see the teams of the climbers are already setting the tempo to get their climbers in the...
I thought I said the Tifosi out there. What he's talking about actually is what's going on in our ride. There is a break right now. There are some riders that have just hammered off the front. So what we're talking about there, I told him, I said, you guys are flying today. And he said, oh yeah, we averaged 21.6. And that's in 5%, 3 to 5% terrain. They went through the forest before they came out here. So these guys are like, they're just flying. And so that's what he told me as he went by. But what he's talking about is there is a rider up there that has already moved up. I think Doug and a bunch of other riders have ridden off the front after that corner. So in a little bit, I'm gonna tell Paul, make sure you get that break. Make sure you get the bridge, because more of them are gonna bridge up to the front group. They're a little bit up the road, not too far. But at this point, I don't really want to exert myself too much, because as I said earlier, I'm still trying to see how my body's gonna hold up, you know, after the week I had. So you have to listen to yourself, and you have to know when to back off. There's no point in you overexerting yourself and then having to just change the rest of your ride significantly based on the effort you put out. So we have a bit of a separation still. They're not that far up. You can see Mo moving to the left. I'm sure he's keeping his eye on them. The effort is going to pick up. Look at the watts on the right. Road's going up a little bit. There's James here. James had a rough ride. He wasn't feeling like himself. He wasn't riding like I've seen him ride. And so Jerry's bridging up to those guys. They're about a car length or two up the road. You can see them right there in the distance. Now Mo's going to ride up. Abby goes. I'm going to go around Mark in a little bit. I told Paul to make sure you get that bridge as they ride up. Yeah, I'm telling him that Mo told me about their average through the forest. What they do is they do lap. He probably uses the lap timer on his head unit. That's a good way to use it for your routes. Because that way you can clock the sections you're interested in. Having to feather the pedals a little bit because you pedal and you soft pedal, wait for other people. But right here the effort is up. You can see things are breaking up, so I'm riding up. And I really exerted myself here. 400 plus watts. I ride up. Now look at my heart rate, 176. I rarely get up there. This effort should not have gotten me to 176. So that's when I know that, okay, my body's not where it usually is. Now it says 178. I think I got up to like 183. If I'm riding in the 180s, I'm off the front. So I knew my body was below par. So at this point, I'm just sitting in. You know, I've got my cadence a little lower than I would normally have it, just to kind of see how my body's going to feel. And this road has stair-stepper climbs. There's like 3 of them. This is like the second one. Then we have a slight area where you go down a little bit and then you go again before the intersection. So right here, I'm at 180. It's been years since I've seen 180. You know. So my body's not firing normally. I should be like 170, 171. It's like 10 beats higher than it should be. And it just, on the last climb, it felt hot to me. So I'm still riding fine, but I noticed that I glanced at my heart rate during this effort. And I'm like, man, this is not 180 beats per minute. 180 beats per minute I hit when I do a power interval. And this was not a power interval. So that's how you know where your ranges are, your zones, and you know how you're going. So I decided I'm gonna hang in on the last climb, see how I'm doing, and then decide when to let them go and stay within my comfort area, because we've got a long ride left. You can see my heart rate went back to 180. It should not be 180. Right there, I decided to back off the power. So I stand just to change the way things are moving. I moved to the left because Mike was on my right and I saw him. I didn't see this other guy. So they had to go around. So I backed off a little bit because I know the corner is coming. Paul's gonna come on my right. I'm gonna sit behind him. You can see it says 0 watts and then it's going back up. So I'm not really riding. And then my heart rate starts to come down a little bit. So it's almost like my body is overcompensating for something. Then right here I start feeling a little better. So you really have to know how to dose out your effort. Because normally I would be up there with those guys. So the grade is over here. It's leveled off. Challenges with the power meter on this ride as well. The power pod is just very finicky, so I had to reset it after this ride. But all in all, I definitely prefer the rally power pedals. They're like the Timex of power meters that I've ever used. You set it and forget it. So right here, I'm feeling fine again. The road's leveled off. Heartbeat dropped about probably 14 beats, I guess. But I shouldn't have been at 180. I mean, it didn't matter that it was at 180, but I'm like, man, 180, no way. We're not going that hard. So I pull off to the side. Paul comes through in a little bit. Mike Weingrab will come around, and I'm going to get on his wheel. We can see the group in the distance near where that white truck is. When Mike comes around, I jump on his wheel. And that was another reason I went ahead and rode the day after this ride. The day after this ride, I felt like myself again. So it took a while. So when you haven't been yourself or you haven't been well, the first few rides back, you got to really pay attention to how you dose out your effort. I mean, you always should anyway, but even more so if your training has been disturbed or you have been under the weather. You got to gradually get back into it. My goal for this ride was to just sit in most of the time. But we didn't get the luxury because we got there late, so we had to ride into Honey, just the two of us. And so here when Mike stood up there, I just rolled around him. Paul gets on my wheel. That's more waiting for us. He sees us coming. We're not the last group on the road. I think we're like group 2. And so he's waiting to pull us back to the group. So I'll go ahead and get on his wheel right here. As soon as he sees me, he revs up. High cadence. I'll go ahead and just get on his wheel so we can finish the close. And then he's gonna ask, because there are other riders back there. Mark and them are back there. Mark and James. So he says are there more riders back there? So Mark's back there, James is back there, some other riders. In a little while, I'm gonna back off and try to see if I can see them once we turn. There's an intersection coming up in about a kilometer or so. But then I don't see them. They're very far behind. So those hills are tough on 830. And you know, who knows how hard they rode when they were out on 1097 heading to the lake. I opened my jersey all the way because I felt so hot on that climb. It was like my engine was overheating. And you know, we had just stopped. I had had plenty to drink and everything, so I really couldn't explain why I felt so hot. The good thing was my energy level was very predictable. That was my biggest concern, is how my energy systems would hold up. Because it's like I had emptied the tank earlier in the week and had to rebuild in the subsequent days, so I had very low energy the rest of the week up till Saturday. So when we started this ride, I loaded up with a lot of electrolytes and we have a bunch of gels. So I'm on the left here. After a while, I'm gonna sit back. Paul's gonna ride up. I'm gonna look for Mark and them, because Mo had said they were going to stop at the turn, but it didn't end up stopping. They just kept riding. So some of the riders will end up turning around to go back for Mark and them. But Paul and I just slow down and wait for them. Mike here is one of the ones that would turn around along with Mike S5. That's Mike Weingraf. And they'll go back and get Mark and them. And then we'll all end up riding back in together. So don't let your ego get you in too much trouble on your rides. If you're not feeling good, back off. You know, form group B, group C on the road, whatever. Or ride by yourself, ride back in. James ended up riding home alone because he didn't have anything left. When we got on 105, you'll see him pull out the line. I will point that out. But you know, if you don't feel like you have it that day, and you just let the group go and finish your ride. Nothing's wrong with it. So I'm not here with Paul. Paul turns, I'm behind him. He sees me. That's why he's letting these guys go. He's waiting for me. I'm looking for Mark and them, and I can't see them. And I'm like, they weren't that far back. You know, at that point, my concern is, did they have a mechanical? I told him, I can't even see them. So in a little bit here, Paul's turning around. I'm coming up the road. I'm right on the left. And I'll tell him, I don't see them.
Yeah, let's just go.
So in a little while after that, we regrouped. We waited for them. There were some riders that went back to get them. So there's James there on the left and Mark in front of James. They were the one that was back there, along with another guy with the bike lane jersey on. I don't know his name. So they I guess they had trouble recovering on that climb. So this climb really slows you down. So we're going the opposite direction from what we normally use when we come through here. So we're going to be going down that 15% climb instead of climbing up it. It will take us to 105. I like coming through here when we come out here. It's a quieter way to get to 105. A little more circuitous, but it's quiet. Some of the riders haven't been this way, so we're letting them know where the turns are. As we turn, I'm going to tell them left turn where the truck is coming from. So Mike S5 on my right says, yeah, turn at 35 miles an hour. I said, no, you don't want to be going that fast. This is the way when we're going back the other way is 15%. And for some reason, it's very crowded today. A lot of work trucks here, a lot of stuff being done nearby in these homes. It was kind of a little crowded. When we're going up it, I've never noticed the cracks before because I guess we're going so slow, when you're climbing. But coming down, there's a lot of cracks. That's why I went on the other side of the road. There's enough visibility, but the pavement on that side was nice and smooth. So when you have a lot of cracks between the pavement, like you see with the two concrete slabs, do not ride there. The Belgians call that I think the crack of death or something like that, because if your wheels get stuck in there, it's going to take some serious skills to avoid going down between the two, where you see the little black asphalt that they put in there. You don't want to ride there if there's any significant gap. Even though there isn't, don't ride on cracks. Use the pavement. This is 105. We're in Conroe, Highway 105, headed west. We're going to go all the way up to McCaleb Road. So we're going to wait for the people that were slow to come around that corner. So there's a lull in the pace until everyone gets back in line. So Mark moves to the front. We make sure everybody's here. There's James. James was having just a rough day. I think he just wasn't going well today. In a few kilometers, you will see him pull out of the line. And then shortly after that, I'm going to ask Mike, who's leading at that point, to slow down, back off the pace a bit. Because he's not aware that we had lost somebody. He wasn't aware. But then by the time we get to McCaleb Road, it's clear that James is not going to even be able to ride with us. So he ended up just holding his own pace back into town. I'm on Paul's right now as we roll. I think Mark is pulling right now. There's a lot of debris on the right. If I let Paul know there's a lot of debris, I'll go ahead and roll next to the white man. I hope we get another shot of James's cadence. During the ride, I really didn't notice it, but just looking at the clips, if you look at Mike S5 here, I mean, he's not a high cadence rider necessarily, but he's got a bit of a snap every time he hits the bottom of the stroke, if you look at it. When you look at James's cadence, it's almost like, how can I describe? It's like a tired cadence. That's what I noticed in the film. Just look at James's leg. Let's get another shot. You'll see what I'm talking about. When it goes to the bottom of the stroke, it's almost like it doesn't want to come back up. So I think he was not himself. He was not 100%. Something was going on. That happens to all of us. So the key is that you listen to yourself on those days and you back off, or you ride alone, or you ride shorter, or not at all. Mark's done pulling, he pulled off, and we rolled through. I ended up having a flat tire off camera after we were done filming. Something worked its way, some sharp piece of, it looked like a pinhead more than anything, but it was long. And it was embedded in the tread of my tire, sideways on the side, and then worked its way in. This guy pulled for a little while. He was a bit tired too. At this point, I'm feeling fine. I'm not having any ill effects from the effort on that hill back there, because I backed off timely. I think that's important. That's why we're able to talk and do all of that. So what I try not to do when other people are struggling in the group, I don't like to do too much talking in the pace line, because it's just not cool. I think it's a bit demoralizing to people who are struggling with the pace, and you're back there having a conversation. So I try to act like we're all working hard. This is where James pulled off the pace line. He was not pulling, he was in line. He could not go this speed anymore, this effort. And so I kind of keep my eye on him, because I saw him pull out. He pulled out of, like, I think, second position. He was behind Mike. So I'm telling Mike to let Mike know. Mike S5 is in front of me, and Mike Weingrad is pulling. I'm looking for James. I told him to tell Mike Weingrad to back off, because we just lost somebody. So when James pulled off, we lost him. He did not go back in the pace line. So I'm going to ride up. This road is going up here. It says 2%. It felt a little steeper, I guess it was the wind. But anyway, I'm going to ride up and let Mike Weingrad know, just kind of keep it steady until we get everybody back. Mike S5 looked to the right because he saw me there. I'm just riding up to talk to him. I told him, I said, just keep it steady because we lost somebody. So we're kind of keeping our eye on James. And then James ended up working really hard to get back here on this little grade. And I think that was the last, like, little F energy he had that he put out here, because after here, he was empty. He was running on empty. And there are days like that, depending on how your week went, on how you rested, or how you loaded up your energy stores. He basically was on an empty tank, because he rides better than me. So either he wasn't well or something, I could tell. So we're keeping the pace a bit subdued here somewhat, so he can get back. So this is like 3 hours into the ride, and I'm finally beginning to feel like a cyclist again. When I take off a lot of days, it's like you lose your, as the French say, souplesse. Because pedaling is not a natural human motion, so you have to constantly work on it and remind your brain, the neural pathways, what you want your legs to do. Build that muscle memory. riding around 37, 38K. It fluctuates because I'm using my speedometer with the power pod. And the power pod was too glitchy on this ride. When it works, it's accurate, you know, but it has its limitations. You know, you can't use it to judge your instant impact stuff. I mean, it has, you know, limitations in terms of it's very finicky. It's like a computer. You know, Mike Weingraf pulled off and Mike S5 took over. The cool thing was he kept the pace steady. It didn't change much. So everybody's pretty much there. I see James in the back there. James is there. So that's good. If you have not trained your body to hit certain zones for a certain period of time, and you come on a group ride and you're forced to do that, meaning a higher zone than you used to, you end up burning more calories than you're accustomed to, and that's how you can hit the wall. And we sometimes call it the bonks, and that's the reason why when you're riding harder, you need to make sure you fuel up. Well, my pockets are always full. The left pocket has a lot of gels and other stuff in there we need. I stand here because it just felt better. You have to practice that. You saw how I stood up without my wheel coming back to Paul. Paul didn't have to change anything he was doing. And the same thing when I sat down. My bike did not slow down. I'm in a larger than normal gear because that felt good on this corner. He's asking if we're gonna turn, and we're not sure. There's another way we go with Navajo. We're going where it says Tomball, and that is Fish Creek, or AKA McCaleb. And then Paul sees them getting in the left turn lane, but nobody said anything to us. I guess they figured we knew. I don't particularly care for McCaleb Road. McCaleb Road this time of year, which is Fish Creek southbound. This part of it it's got nice rollers, but you're always fighting the wind, so it's hard. This is where we lost James permanently. So as the French say, tête j'aime. You have to ride with your head and your legs. You can't just ride. You have to use your head. You have to listen to yourself. That guy's pouring water on him, so he's hot. It was a humid day. It was not very hot in terms of temperature. It says 27, and I guess with the humidity. So we're right around, what, 85, 80 degrees, something like that, 85 degrees probably.
Yep.
About 80 degrees, but it feels warmer.
This is the stuff we always talk about.
So right here, when you turn, this is the end part of Fish Creek, way north into Conroe, where it hits 105. Well, going back, the south wind is in our face. And it's up and down. So if you're tired, this is not the way to go back home. There are no intersections until we get past 2854. I mean, no lights. So the way I feel right here in this ride, if I had felt like that on that climb, it would have been nice. But no fuss, no muss. You have to know when to back off. Even when we used to compete, there's certain parts of the races where you just don't feel it. You let people go and then you come back later. Right here, I'm feeling good. I felt good from the time we hooked back up with Mark and them. Once Mo pulled us back to the group, I started feeling like myself again. So there's just something, I guess, going on those climbs, you know, got my body to feel like, okay, we need a ride. So even though I felt great, I wasn't sure how my energy levels would maintain themselves. So I really just sat in most of the day just to make sure that I had enough at the end of the ride. I mean, I took my polls, but for the most part, it was steady work. This is the part of the Caleb that hurts. It's like it's going up, falls flat, wind's blowing. And once we turned that corner, James did not even get in the pace line. So he's back there. We saw him in the distance. But this is like probably 16 kilometers, maybe 20K to where we live. So you know, he knows the way home. He backed up to make sure he made it. That's marked there. In the distance, James, that little dot on the road, he's back there. It's a 3% climb right here. It looks flat, but it's not. I just remained seated and downshift. I don't think I stood on this one. Yeah, the wind and the hills, they make you work. So when you're not feeling 100%, limit the amount of pulls you take. Definitely you don't want to attack. So I did not do very long pulls on this day. I spent a lot of time, as you've seen, just sitting in. There were other people that wanted to pull, fine. Because Paul and I rode for almost 2 hours by ourselves. So I had enough chance in the wind. It's going to start to go up again. You see that? It goes up, then there's a little bit of a plateau, then it kicks back up. And most of these are between 1 to 3%. So you feel them, and you're going into a stiff southeasterly breeze for the most part. It's coming in our face and from the left, but mostly from the south. This one gets there in a hurry. This is 3%. To maintain my rhythm, I stay on Mike's left. So I don't have to change anything. Mark said car right. It confused them. They thought he meant we're going to turn. But there's an intersection coming up. Their car was pulling out. And he wanted them to keep their eye on it. So when you're not feeling your best, drop the effort. If you're with a group, sit in. Use the draft. Let your body recover. So because of how we rode on Saturday, by the end of this ride, the last hour or so, I felt great. And into the next day, when I went on the ride on Sunday, I felt like I hadn't even been sick the week before. So it's important that you allow yourself to heal. So I hope you all got a chance to get some K's in, but this is part of what we did on Saturday. Keep those doctors fired.